Morning. At this point, dapat nabasa nyo na itong pages 224 hanggang 227 ng inyong Advanced Algebra textbook. Dapat pinag-aralan nyo rin yung tatlong examples under 6.3. Madali lang na maintindihan yan. It's just that this set of examples is different from the one that we had during the last synchronous session. In that, our previous examples, yung nakukuha natin na solution set per case ay pasok na pasok agad sa domain. No? So, let's see what if kung hindi. These three examples in the textbook, 6.3 items 1 to 3, some of them, in fact all of them yata, ay hindi necessarily pasok agad sa domain. Yung nakukuha natin solution set per case. Okay? So, let's see two more examples. Again, at this point, dapat nabasa nyo na itong 224 to 227 at napag-aralan itong tatlong examples. Kung pinapanood mo itong video without going through these pages and the examples first, stop mo muna, balik muna ulit sa libro, basahin, intindihin. Okay? Now, moving forward, here we'll talk about two examples. Again, from the textbook, you'll see these two examples on page 229 under exercise 6.3. These are items 9 and 11. Okay, so for number 9, if you look at this absolute value inequality, we have the absolute value of 1 minus 2x all over 4 is less than 7. Again, if you go by our lesson for the past 2-3 weeks on absolute values, remember the importance of going back to the definition. That's really important. Because if you go back to the definition, that sets the tone for, in particular, the domain. Remember, generally, kapag nag-graph tayo ng absolute value inequalities, ang itsura niya parang dalawang linear functions, na mayroong kanya-kanyang specified domain. At nanggagaling yung domains na yun sa pag-apply natin ng definition. Okay? Naipakita yan na mabuti doon sa tatlong example sa textbook. So, let's solve this inequality. Let's determine the solution set of this inequality. Again, the idea is you always start with the definition. Whatever expression is inside the absolute value symbol, which in this case is 1 minus 2x, i-apply natin definition doon. Because that expression, 1 minus 2x, can either be, based on the definition, can either be non-negative or negative. In other words, meron tayong positive version, di ba pinag-usapan natin to, at negative version ng ating expression within the absolute value bars. Okay? So let's start with the first one. What if 1 minus 2x? 1, sa kabila, sorry. What if 1 minus 2x, the expression within the absolute value bars, what if this were non-negative? That's the first condition. Remember, if you apply the definition. And with this inequality, ito dapat magbibigay sa atin ng domain ng isa sa dalawa na portions ng ating function. So let's solve this inequality. Very easily, we apply API, add negative 1 to both sides. I go minus 2x is greater than or equal to negative 1. And then by MPI, remember yung pagkakaiba, si MPI, now we are multiplying both sides of the inequality by negative 1/2. So the left side will be just x, then the other side would be 1/2. But since my multiplier, remember, it's a negative number, mag-flip yung ating symbol. Okay? So etong si x is less than or equal to 1/2. Ito yung magsisilbi natin na domain, kumbaga, for the first portion of our function. Okay? That's really important. Again, naalala nyo dun sa examples na binasa nyo kanina. Now, let's park that there. You know from the examples that we'll do something with that domain. So, now that we have established the domain, ibabalik na natin ito, yung original inequality natin. But it's, sabi nga natin, positive version, kumbaga, ng binomial na 1 minus 2x. So, it's the exact same inequality but without the absolute value bars, but it's the positive version, or the non-negative na lang, the non-negative version of 1 minus 2x. So, I will have 1 minus 2x. Okay, kaburahin natin. Para kung gusto nyo ma-distinguish, let's use a different color. Yan, si pink. I go 1 minus, 2x pala yan. 2x all over 4 is less than 7. And then we solve this inequality. Again, we apply MPI. We multiply both sides by 4. I go 1 minus 2x is less than 28. Hindi mag-flip ang aking symbol kasi ang multiplier natin ay positive number. Okay? API tayo. Let's eliminate the 1 from the left side. I go negative 2x is less than 27. Okay? Then let's isolate x by multiplying both sides by negative 1/2. I go x is, and remember, mag-flip yan dahil negative ang multiplier ko. No? Negative 27 over 2. Now, remember from the example, and basically from the idea of this inequality, no? Had the inequality just been this one encircled, kung yan lang talaga, ang solution set mo ay ito nasa ilalim. X is greater than negative 27 over 2. But remember, itong inequality mo na ito operates within a specified domain, which is this. So, we will only consider the solution set, no, at least part of the solution set that falls within that domain. And how do you do that? Again, sa example, no, ang ginagawa natin dito, kinukuha natin yung intersection, no, nung domain, ito, tsaka nung, well, you might call it temporary solution set, no, of the first, the non-negative version of the inequality. So we take the intersection of those two sets. Okay? Now you might have to read up on your intersection of inequalities. No? You might even do the graphing method. But basically, the intersection of those two sets would be, you can imagine, no, the domain says x is less than or equal to 1/2. So it's a solid dot at 1/2 and the ray pointing to the left of the number line. No? And then this one is a hollow circle at negative 27 over 2 and a ray pointing to the right. If you might imagine, parang mata ni Baymax ang itsura niyan. The intersection would be, no, x is greater than negative 27 over 2 and intersection, remember, less than or equal to 1/2. Okay? So that right there, itong inequality na to, that's the solution set of just the first case, no, the non-negative case of the binomial 1 minus 2x. Okay? Again, sa example, ipapark lang muna yan. Now, let's proceed with the negative version of that. Now, what if 1 minus 2x were less than 0? Ito yung isang version. Again, this is applying the definition. So again, we solve this inequality. I have negative 2x is less than negative 1. If you imagine, lilitaw din dapat dyan itong 1/2 na to, yung critical number natin kanina. I will have x is greater than 1/2. It flips because my multiplier is a negative number. Again, this will serve as the domain of the second part of your function. Okay? Let's use a different ink. Again, ito, i-rebuild natin itong same inequality, but the negative version of the expression within the absolute value bars. So, that will be the negative of 1 minus 2x all over 4 is less than 7. Okay? Then we just solve this very simple inequality. MPI tayo. Multiply both sides by 4. Positive 4, ha? Muna. I will go the negative of 1 minus 2x is less than 28. No flipping kasi positive 4 ang multiplier mo. But now, we can multiply both sides by negative 1. Para ito maging 1 minus 2x. But when we do that, dito siya mag-flip. Kasi negative 1 ang multiplier mo eh. That'll be greater than negative 28. Then we try to isolate our x. So we go negative 2x is greater than, we subtract 1 from both sides of the inequality. I go negative 29. And then we divide both sides by negative 2. I have x is less than, flip ulit, 29 over 2. Now, once again, remember, this portion right here, sabi mo ng temporary solution set, has to be analyzed against your domain. Kailangan natin hanapin, katulad ng una, yung intersection nila. Kasi hindi lahat nitong x is less than 29 over 2 ay pasok. Kasi it only operates, this the second portion of your function, only exists within this domain where x is greater than 1/2. So we take the intersection of this domain No? The x is greater than 1/2 in this inequality right here. Again, if you can imagine, your solution set, ito ay, this is a hollow dot at 1/2, ray pointing to the right. 29/2 is definitely to the right of 1/2. So it's a hollow dot at, at 29/2 and the ray pointing to the left. Again, medyo kamukha yung mata ni Baymax. The intersection would be x is greater than 1/2 and less than 29/2. Katulad sa example, hindi pa tayo tapos kasi kailangan natin tignan, these are two cases, remember. No? The first case, or, remember, that's really important, or the second case. And remember, yung or operator natin that pertains to, in terms of set operations, the union of two sets. So, itong dalawang intersections na to, written in blue, finally, we'll have to take the union of those two sets. Okay? Now, one way to do this is to simply write these two inequalities. So, I can just write x is greater than -27/2 and less than or equal to 1/2. Then I take the union of that with x is greater than 1/2 and less than 29/2. Now that's the lazy way of doing that. Kasi kung titingnan mo yung dalawang inequalities and if you take the union of those two inequalities, again, if you can visualize the graphs of both, you should be able to at this point. No? They sort of intersect. Not really, but visually they will appear to be intersecting at 1/2. Kumbaga, sige, drawing natin dito sa ibabaw. Kumbaga, etong number line, dito na lang, buburahin ko na lang later. This were our number line right here. Ito, dito babagsak si -27/2. Nandito si 29/2. Somewhere in between is 1/2. Tama, no? Na-imagine nyo naman yan ang behavior ng mga numbers mo. Yan ang arrangement nila, rather. The first graph, itong nasa kaliwa, is a hollow circle here and a solid dot here. Diba? And then the second one right here is a hollow dot at 1/2 and a hollow dot at 29/2. Again, if you can imagine, we're taking the union of these two sets. So we'll put them together. Yun naman ang idea ng union eh. You're putting them together. And if you put those two together, if you can imagine, let's use a different ink one last time. Pag pinagsama mo yung dalawang yan, ang itsura niyan, hollow dot dito. Dito, they have a common point already. No? Kasi solid naman ito eh. So magiging part siya ng solution set. But then the other end is also a hollow circle. And then your line segment in between. Bagay na itsura niyan. And that inequality, if you translate that graph into its inequality form, which is also the final answer, the better final answer to this better solution set, way of writing the solution set of this absolute value inequality would be x, what happened? Tumaba. Would be x is greater than -27/2 and less than 29/2. That right there is the best final answer. Okay? Hindi nyo naman kailangan dumaan doon sa graph. Itong graphing na to. In fact, it's better if you can visualize the graph. If itong buong to is a thought process. You don't have to draw that. You should be able to just being able to visualize these two inequalities, determining that this in fact is the union. Okay? Pero wala namang masama kung mag-graph kayo. Yung nga lang it takes time. And again, this is grade 10. Should be able to visualize that. Pero walang masama kung mag-graph. Okay? Pause. Kung kailangan balikan itong example na to, balikan. Kung kailangan i-take note, i-pause, screenshot, do it now. Okay? For our second and last example, we have item number 11 on the same page, 229. Okay, we have the absolute value of x is less than or equal to 2x. Actually, mas madali ito kaysa sa una. No? Again, we start with our definition. No? Yung sa ating positive and negative, non-negative na lang ito, not positive. Non-negative and negative versions. So the first one, actually solved na agad siya eh. If we use the definition, the expression within the absolute value bars is just x. So if x were greater than or equal to 0, it's already solved. No, that's the domain of the first part right there. So let's rewrite our inequality in its non-negative version of x. So we go x lang siya, no? It's less than or equal to 2x. And we solve this inequality. Sorry. Kanina pala gumamit ako ng pink na ink, ano? So let's do the same here. X is less than or equal to 2x. Okay? Now we solve. Pagsamahin na natin sila sa isang side, I go negative x is less than or equal to 0. Walang magic dyan. I just added negative 2x to both sides of the inequality. And now I multiply both sides by negative 1. I go x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay? Kasi negative 1 yung multiplier. Again, kunin natin ang intersection nitong inequality na to plus our domain. Buti dali, tignan, no? Ano intersection nila? Yun mismo. No, the intersection is x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay? Now, for the negative version, so if the expression is less than 0, swak na siya. No, that's the domain already. Now, the negative version of that would be, let's use the pink ink here. I have negative x is less than or equal to 2x. Again, let's try and isolate x. Pagsamahin natin sila. I add negative 2x to both sides. I go negative 3x is less than or equal to 0. I multiply both sides by negative 1/3 rather. So I go x is greater than or equal to 0. Once again, itong inequality ko at yung aking domain kanina, I'll take their intersection. Now, what's the intersection of these two sets? Look at the yellow. X is less than 0. And the pink one, x greater than or equal to 0. What do they have in common? Right. Nothing. That's the null set. Okay? And finally, these two intersections, kukunin lang natin ang union. Because remember, these two cases are basically an OR statement. So it's either case 1 is true or case 2 is true. Okay? So we take the union of these two inequalities. And it's very easy because one of the two intersections is actually a null set. And when you take the union of a set like x is greater than or equal to 0 and the null set, dali lang yun, di ba? It's like adding 0. You're taking the union of something with the null set. It's like adding 0. So our final answer is x is greater than or equal to 0 right there. Diba? Again, kung kailangan i-pause pag-aralan itong solution na ito, do so now. Again, I am in the Gmeet if you need to consult any of the items that we just talked about. Other than that, you may engage the tickets that should have already been posted. Okay? Thank you.